Winston Churchill once said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Prison education programs are trying to become a new way to cut down on recidivism, or a fancy word for prisoners not returning to prison once freed. These programs are going through many trials and tribulations and will one day be successful. I would like to refute the New York Times editorial, "Let prisoners learn while they serve," because they made the right argument for the wrong reasons. The editorial states, despite limited unreliable funding, these programs have more than proved their value. This is a terminal value claim because it uses opinionated words such as unreliable and more than proved. I would like to prove that even though the prison education programs do receive less than adequate funding, this, however, is not the only adversity these programs face. In this speech, I will outline the two main reasons the prison education fails. The first reasoning is that the environment of prisoners make it difficult to learn. The second reasoning is the fact that it's hard to find good teachers to teach in. The first way that prison education programs are struggling is because of the hostile and dangerous environments the prisoners are living in. This makes it difficult to learn. The research paper called "Why 90% of Prison Programs Fail" highlights how prison environments can make it difficult to transfer information learned into real-world skills. The paper discusses something referred to as non-behavioral prison environment, which is defined as, quote, "concepts learned from the classroom cannot be applied in practice in living environment," end quote. When someone is not in a healthy and unsafe environment, it is almost pointless to teach. Even if the best instructors teach with the best curriculum, it will not be retained if the student is going to leave the classroom and focus on not being taunted or hurt. Another article talks about the prison environment, how the prison environment can cause the prisoners to have permanent psychological damage. From prison to home, the effects of incarceration and re-entry on children, families, and communities is a research paper that goes into depth on how prison environments can drastically affect a prisoner's mindset. As most of us know from either currently being a student or formerly being a student, it takes extreme concentration and focus to actually learn the content being presented. The author of the paper, Craig Haney, states, quote, "The adaptation of imprisonment is almost always difficult and at times creates habits of thinking and acting that can be dysfunctional in periods of post-prison adjustment. Just think if one of you had to transition to a prison and be expected to do the kind of rigorous schoolwork that you do today, it would not be easy." Let's move on to the second reason why funding is not the only struggle that prison education programs should address. The other reason of why it is difficult to run these programs is finding people willing enough to teach these criminals. Think, if you become a teacher, the last people you want to teach is convicted felons who have potentially caused harm on society. Prison Teachers, a different type of educator, is an article that talks about the difficulties of being a teacher in prison. This is a direct quote from the article. Quote, "Instructors and volunteers cannot enter or leave the facility easily. Clearance to come and go is difficult, and once inside, professors must endure extensive scrutiny procedures before reaching the classroom and again on the way out. And there is no flexibility for instructors to run even a few minutes over class time to speak individually with students because controlled movement in prisons only allows 10 minutes for inmates to reach the next destination once a move is announced." With these difficulties and restraints on teachers, it makes it hard to teach the prisoners. Imagine, if you had all these limitations on your teaching style, could you effectively teach rigorous coursework like college courses? Here is a journal entry that Vice News has done on a teacher that works in prisons. The article is called "What It's Like to be a Teacher in Prison: A Comprehensive Analysis on My 30 Months Teaching in Her Majesty's Prison Service." Quote, "The prison policy has changed again. There is less emphasis on class numbers. Several members of staff have left since I started. Teachers with degrees and teaching qualifications have been replaced by former administration staff and ICT workers. The department is genuinely quiet. The prisoners mostly happy as long as they get their T markings." As you can see on a personal level, this is a real-life example on the difficulties teaching in prisons. To conclude, prison education programs are a great way to help society make better lives for people. Although there are many obstacles these programs are going to face, funding is not the only one. I went over how hostile environments make it hard to retain information. I also addressed how it can be difficult to find teachers brave enough and dedicated enough to be able to reach out to these criminals and teach. All in all, when the education programs become successful, this does not mean it's final. When they face problems and failures, it is not fatal, and it is going to take courage to be able to continue and change these prisoners' lives and their families' lives for the better. Thank you.